Hello, everybody. Scott Golden with the Pro Wrestling Logic YouTube channel here, and we are here to review the AEW Women's Tag Cup Tournament, which is taking place on their YouTube channel on Mondays for the next few weeks. It was recently announced, and amazingly, in less than 24 hours, had over 400,000 downloads. To put that in perspective, there are weeks that NXT, WWE's developmental offering, on cable television gets less than 700,000, and I won't say a throwaway project, I'll say a vanity project from AEW does more than half that in 24 hours in an online platform. It says a lot to how far all WWE brands have fallen, and also says a lot to how hot the AEW brand is. I support this project because I support women's wrestling, and that's why we're covering it here. Obviously, I'm only going to cover it a few times, as it'll be only a few weeks into full duration. They announced this about 2 weeks ago, and it launches with two matches, so this review should be 10 minutes or less, I'm thinking. It's presented differently, unique opening song, unique lights, and also a interesting announced team with Veda Scott as your color commentator and Tony Schiavone as your lead announcer. Hopefully, Veda Scott continues to be with the company, as she is a super talented person. Seen her in Shine and I believe Shimmer a time or two, along with various other independent promotions over the years. She has a lot of unique talent both in the speaking and in pro wrestling in between the ropes roles. Also, Shaul Guerrero, daughter of Eddie, and former WWE developmental talent Raquel Diaz, was the ring announcer here, and we opened the program with something that I thought was really cool. Former WCW and WWF Women's Champion Medusa, pioneer to women's wrestling of the 90s, came out to welcome the event, and she cuts a promo about the women having a unique opportunity. I would have put her on commentary, maybe as a third analyst, or maybe even in place of Veda Scott. Veda still young enough to wrestle. Medusa obviously not wanting to wrestle a ton, if at all, and having the credibility of a former World Women's Champion in the two primary leagues of the 90s would have been, or at least North American leagues of the 90s, would have been a useful catch since she's in the building anyway. And they're drawing colored numbers. Nightmare Sisters, Brandy Road and Allie draw the same color, and they are paired up. And Allie looks inside and pulls a red chip after Brandy had already done so. Dasho was distracted. There is some degree of tomfoolery here, as it's clear that Allie may have cheated or rigged things, or somehow things got kind of put together in a backwards way. We then go to Penelope Ford with boyfriend Kip Sabian pulling her chip and learning she'd be tagged with Mel, who was brought in by Brandy Rhodes, oddly enough. So we go to the first round match. Nightmare Sisters with Dustin Rhodes and QT Marshall defeating Penelope Ford and Mel with Kip Sabian. The match was, I guess, okay, but it certainly shows that there are various levels of skill with the women in AEW, some of which who are not ready to be in a national product, even if it isn't in an online format. The sisters ultimately do end up winning. Brandy's still not there in the ring, but obviously being married to one of the executive vice presidents and one of the founding forces behind AEW, she's always going to have an in-ring role, whether it's best for business or not. Allie has a lot of talent, but hasn't found a character where she can fully show all of that. Ford is athletic, although under experienced and needs more seasoning. And Mel is good, but certainly needs more seasoning to find her way into a character that fits her in a more discernible fashion. Allie takes most of the match, and the sisters are on the defense for the majority of which, and then we see she gets in some offense here and there, but it's clear that she is in the role of getting her tail kicked the majority of the match. And then we see a distracted referee. Mel hits a choke bomb on Rhodes for a visual pin, but this does not result in the actual win. The end came when Allie raked Mel's eyes, leaving her to turn around into a spear by Brandy Rhodes. Not the best finish in the world, but it gets the point across. And I would assume that Allie and Rhodes do stay aligned when Brandy eventually goes full-blown heel in the next couple of months or so. Afterwards, Rhodes is acknowledging being sort of more sort of a heel and whatever have you. We then see Nyla Rose and Ariane Andrews team reveal that played on Dynamite originally, and a clip from earlier today when Anna Jay pulls her chip and learns that Tay Conti would be her partner. We don't really know anything about Tay unless you follow NXT, and the assumption is that I guess, idea is also Anna Jay being part of the Dark Order is underplayed in this scenario. Jay is flanked by the whole Dark Order thing, and it negatively affects her overall marketability for this women's showcase. Ariane does okay. She's actually very charismatic, and she always has been. Her in-ring stuff is hit and miss, but she was better here than most people would be with a multi-year layoff. There isn't a lot of botches or nervousness in this match, as one would be expected with individuals of various skill levels. The match basically is Nyla Rose showing her dominance early. Obviously, as a former women's champion, one would think she would get the pick of partners. However, it doesn't happen that way. Jay and Conti work together as they work over her leg and eventually keep her to the ground, evening the odds of the whole thing. Conti uses a variety of kicks and other strikes, and she definitely has, grown even in her post-WWE run experience. This is a good debut for her. And so eventually Ariane gets the hot tag, which leads to a quick finish. Andrews hits the suplex and then did a split cover on Conti. Jay then broke that up with a rolling neck breaker and pinned her for what has to be considered an upset. The finish did come out of nowhere and looks a little awkward, but maybe that's what they were going for. They were going for the surprise factor. Nyla Rose pretends to give Andrew respect, but flipped her off and clotheslined her instead. Conti checks on Andrew afterwards, and maybe they will meet up somewhere down the road. Andrew getting another look for the future is very possible. And Alex Marvez interviews both winning teams. Rhodes says this was the first night she realized she was a big star here and played up the fact that she has an action figure. She tries to mentor Allie towards getting her some of that. And, maybe we're going to see a completely heel Rhodes run with Cody and Dustin and Brandy all aligning, and maybe Allie and other add-ons will be part of that. Only time will tell. And, when the fans are there, that's worthwhile. Alex Marvez, who I don't quite understand why he is still employed in that particular environment, is there, and he is very clearly kind of talking it through, figuring everything out, and trying to bring up the Dark Order piece, which Anna Jay does not want added at a deeper level, and so ultimately that gets. But ultimately, I don't know whether this is the right time to do a complete women's tournament in AEW. I don't know that they have enough women to pull it off convincingly, but they've already decided. So, I mean, this is a just over half an hour program, but with what they have, it could be something that could be a regular thing. But the fact that they drew 400,000 people in just over 24 hours speaks a lot to brand loyalty, which is a good thing. So we will continue to cover it here in any event. Until next time, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Until next time, everybody.